For the first time on this podcast, we are going to talk about our home race. We're here to talk about the Canadian Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen won from Carlos Sainz in second and Lewis Hamilton in third. Jordan, I mean, before we get into the race, let's just talk about the atmosphere and everything that we lived over last weekend in Montreal.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Jonah went to the race itself all weekend long. Even the pre-festivities on Thursday, the pit lane walk, we went together, and then Jonah went the rest of the race. I unfortunately couldn't attend the race itself, but I did go to most of the festivities that happened prior to the race.
Yeah.
The Canadian Grand Prix is not like any other race where, it could be held in the Red Bull Ring, and it's kind of like in the middle of nowhere. No, the Canadian Grand Prix is held at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve on an island off of Montreal, Canada's second most populous city. And the city itself turns into this racing paradise. The streets are blocked off, pop-up shops open, supercars are filled the streets. Checkered flags are put on the flagpole.
Yeah, everywhere.
It turns into a crazy festival of racing and crazy festival of cars in Formula One. And I was there on the Wednesday where the streets were blocked off and all the festivities were going on. I went to the Williams pop-up shop at Holt Renfrew that they put up, and had the privilege of meeting two drivers. I had a very funny interaction with one of them, which I'll explain later. We went to the pit lane walk, which was so much fun. We saw the cars, the garages, everybody who's working at the teams. It was an amazing time. Jonah, you were there for the rest of the weekend. What was your experience like?
So, I mean, there are two teams specifically that I'd like to thank for making this weekend extremely enjoyable for me. Number one was Williams. Like you said, you went to the pop-up shop on Wednesday. I went to the pop-up shop on Thursday, and we both met the same guy, Seb Hawkins, who is their esports manager. And I managed to do a quick interview with him, which is super, super nice of him to do that. And Aston Martin, our favorite team, our favorite driver. I mean, they were so nice during the pit walk and took our podcast information. We got some Lance Stroll driver cards. I went to their pop-up shop, got to see the AMR 21. That was just so nice. I will say, though, that another part of the weekend that was kind of annoying is that I was supposed to meet Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso on the Saturday. I had a ticket to get autographs from both of them, and sadly, because of the rain, they had to cancel everything. But look, that's okay. I'm not super mad about it because it was really, really raining outside. So I kind of understand why they didn't want to go out in the rain and deal with it, especially on qualifying day. So yeah, I mean, those three teams, I mean, even if I didn't get to meet Alpine, just the fact that I had the opportunity to meet them, and the rain didn't work out that well. But I want to thank specifically Williams, Aston Martin, and Alpine for the amazing experience that I had. And at the circuit, it is amazing. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, I was sitting in the Lance Stroll grandstand, which is at the exit of turn 10, the hairpin, l'épingle in French. And what's so great about that spot is that you get to actually see the cars slow down and not just see them zoom past you at 200 or 300 something kilometers an hour. So yeah, I absolutely love that experience. And Montreal becomes a race town, and Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, which is normally abandoned with the exception of a casino, turns into this amazing hub of race fans. I mean, for those who don't know, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve was originally used well, the entire island was used for the 1976 Olympics and the 1967 World's Fair. So there are still some remnants of the Olympics and the World's Fair that are still on the island. And it's cool to see the combination of um, all of those parts of Montreal's history combined into the racetrack. Like we talk about the Casino Straight. The casino was actually France's World's Fair building in 1967, and they just kept it there. It was supposed to be a temporary building, but they ended up just keeping it there, and it's now the Casino of Montreal. So yeah, it was an absolute pleasure to be at Circuit Villeneuve. It's the first time that I've gone for a Sunday, and I've already renewed my tickets for next year, so I'm excited.
So for those who don't know, I also had tickets for this year, but I had to sell them because I had an exam the day after the race. I couldn't go to the race this year, but I also renewed my tickets for next year as well.
Great. So we'll both actually be there next year, right?
Oh, yes, exactly. But for the drivers, I actually had the opportunity on the Wednesday at the Williams pop-up shop to meet both Williams drivers. And the interactions I had with them were pretty cool. Like, they're really nice people. There's nothing more to say. They're nice people. You could tell that Williams is really doing a lot of effort in trying to promote fan engagement and in trying to develop that area of their business, because, you know, it's before they had a lot of financial scarcity, and now they do not. So they're able to develop all areas of a business, because we have to remember the Formula One is a business at the end of the day. There's the racing side and there's the business side. They're able to develop more their business side with the fans, and brings them more money with gear, brings more money with ticket sales, X, Y, and Z. So they're doing a really good job at that, making all the fans feel welcome. And yeah, the drivers were great. They so nice. I actually met Alex at the actual pop-up shop, and Nicholas Latifi, I met him when he was walking
on the way out.
And I
picked up this bag here, this Aston Martin bag, while I was at the Grand Prix. It's a very nice bag.
When he was walking out, I told this to Jonah right after I met him and before I was about to meet Alex Albon. I told Jonah, I said, when he walked out, I told him, like, good luck, and I told him to keep his head high. So I don't know if in hindsight that was the right thing to say or not, but you know, he really needs to keep his head high.
We're going to talk about Nicholas Latifi a little bit later.
Yes, let's get into the race itself.
Yeah, well, before we talk about the race, I have a few notes about qualifying.
Yes.
First off, with the amount of pace that Aston Martin showed in free practice, I mean, at one point, like, Seb was third in FP3, and then Lance was like somewhere around like 5th to 7th in all of the free practice sessions, and then both of them were out in Q1. What happened?
Yeah, it was pretty disappointing, and it's really funny because I was
ready for Stroll on pole, part 2.
Yeah, look, and it was also a raining qualifying. He normally does well in the rain. It was really funny because I watched some snippets of the F1 pre-qualifying warm-up that they have on F1 TV, and their engineering commentator, I'm forgetting his name now. He has the large hair.
Yeah.
You guys all know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He was predicting that Aston Martin would be up there with Max Verstappen on the front row. And because they did so well, everybody was thinking that they were going to be in the front row. What happened during qualifying, I don't know if they found the problem yet, or I don't know if they found what was wrong, but it was very surprising given that they were P3. And I was really surprised to see not just Seb, but also Lance, because Lance, you know, it's his home race, you know, new car, normally he's good in the wet. It was surprising for me to see him not, you know, let alone Q1, to get into Q3, but just Q2, like even a Q2 appearance was not on the table. To me, that was very surprising. And Seb was pissed.
Furious.
Yeah. And the one thing that I'll say with Aston Martin on regards to this topic is that you could tell that their one lap pace versus their race pace is a world of a difference because Lance smuggled his way into the points
Yeah.
um, and couldn't get out of Q1. So you could tell that there's significant problems with their qualifying pace that they need to focus on.
I think the qualifying, though, at least since I've been intensely following this team, has never really been their strong suit, but there's always been, the gap has been a lot less this year, other years compared to this year. Whereas, I'm gonna bring it back to 2020. Like, sure, there are some times where they wouldn't make it into Q3, but they would still end up finishing like 6th or 7th or something like that. But I heard that there was also some sort of setup problem where Seb was getting mad because apparently the engineer switched up his rear wing setup too much, and that it just screwed him over, and that he couldn't end up making it out of Q1. But who knows? I mean, I really hope that they figure it out. Meanwhile, you said that Aston Martin was going to be, the engineering guy on F1, whose name I forget, said that Aston Martin was going to be on the front row. But look who actually ended up on the front row. Fernando Alonso. Where did that come from?
Yeah, look, Alpine was, if you told me before FP1 that Alpine was going to be on the podium, or not the podium, but the front row, I would have told you you're crazy. Also, last year, we were not big fans of Fernando Alonso. But for some reason,
I'm still not a huge fan of Fernando Alonso.
But for some reason, he has won the majority of the fans' hearts over. He has become a fan favorite. He used to be one of the most hated drivers, and now he's become one of the fan favorites. And El Plan is something that people are posting about every single time something good happens to this guy.
I feel like El Plan is the F1 equivalent of trust the process.
It is the F1 equivalent of trust the process. But look, for Joel Embiid, it's not working out so far.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we should reference that, but I'll just say that he performed really well in qualifying. And I think given Esteban Ocon's performance, I think it was more of a Fernando Alonso qualifying than it was an Alpine qualifying.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was really impressed to see Alonso take an Alpine to the front. I mean, it was also a special qualifying because we knew Leclerc was not going to be challenging for a top spot. And also Perez was out in Q2.
Yeah.
So, if there was a qualifying for Alonso to be on the front row, given the circumstances, makes sense that it is this one.
Yeah.
I think the more surprising thing is that Carlos Sainz was not on the front row.
I mean, maybe it's because of Ferrari's pace in the wet, because we forget it was a wet qualifying. And I can tell you, being there, it was a really wet qualifying. Like, I was drenched that day. If you follow our Instagram at the JJF1 podcast, I took a video of myself at the circuit because I'm a crazy person and I show up at 7:30 in the morning every day. And I said that I was doing my best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles impression, which is entirely true because I was wearing a full green waterproof poncho. And then inside that, I was wearing a Racing Point jacket and a sweatshirt. And on my knapsack, I had a rain cover on my knapsack that was built into my knapsack. So I was wearing a green poncho with a yellow rain covered knapsack. And I truly did look like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle to sit down and watch some F1. And it was really raining. It was not a fantastic day to be outside. But,
Yeah.
all this to say, Ferrari needs to figure out what's going on in the wet because we could have a few more wet races. We never know.
Right. Well, we're coming up to the European very soon.
Yeah.
We're
Go ahead.
No, we're just used to seeing Belgium being wet. We're used to seeing maybe the Austrian Grand Prix being wet. You never know.
You never know. But now if we go into the race, two teams, well, more like one driver and the one team where it went so well for them in qualifying, they ended up struggling from the get-go. I mean, we could talk about Fernando Alonso ending up finishing in P7 on the track, and then plus his 5-second penalty for weaving while defending Bottas ending up in P9. And Haas, I felt so bad for Haas because I thought that Mick Schumacher was finally going to end up scoring his first points in Formula One, and then his PU gave up. And then maybe Kevin Magnussen would be able to do damage control. And no, his front wing had other things in mind. So how do you break all of that down? I mean, let's start with Haas first. I mean, I felt so bad for them.
Yeah, I thought it was just luck. It really just didn't hit them properly because it was two things that were really out of their control. You had a very, very close battle with Lewis Hamilton. And fortunately, in Formula One, every little inch matters. And it's where it just went wrong and it was very unlucky because Lewis Hamilton didn't even have any damage and they had a similar contact. So, and then, the failure with Mick Schumacher also, it was just very unlucky for them because they seemed like they were going to get double points this weekend. And it would have been very nice to see a Haas in double points.
I wanted to see Haas double points, which is something that neither of us would have said last year.
Yeah.
But it also shows that the car really does have pace. It's just that things need to actually go well for them to be able to score points. And, we've seen Ferrari have some bad luck or some self-induced bad luck. And we've had different teams profit off of it. Maybe there's going to be one time where Haas will finally be able to profit off someone else's misery and end up in the points on their own. Well, maybe after some people crashing or on merit, on their own pace. And I really hope that they end up picking it up. Fernando Alonso, I think, is just the problem with pace. I mean, that car doesn't have any pace. It was just a miracle that he got into P2 in qualifying. So that's the way that I see that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's the only explanation is that the experience is what put him into qualifying on the first row.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Meanwhile,
and
especially
the luck of the Habs. The luck of the Habs too.
The luck of the Habs?
Well, Fernando Alonso went to the Bell Center to chill with Caulfield and Josh Anderson and Nick Suzuki. So, he learned how to play some hockey and it gave him a lot of Formula One skills.
I hope so. Because in that case, we should see Fernando Alonso in Montreal more often. I actually watched the video and they asked him if he watched hockey and his reaction was like, no, never. Yeah. Which makes sense. He is from Spain, so I don't think they have a lot of hockey in Spain.
No, they have probably zero hockey in Spain.
Yeah.
And yes, hockey is not part of El Plan.
No, hockey is not part of the process either. So
yeah.
Meanwhile, we were treated to a crazy battle after safety car restarts aplenty. Carlos Sainz versus Max Verstappen. I mean, from my perspective, I was ready. Every single time that they came into the hairpin, it was as if they were about to hit each other. They were so close each time that they went into the hairpin. And I thought that at one point, Sainz was actually going to stick it, and then he was going to end up making it past Verstappen in the hairpin and end up taking off to win the race. What do you take from that? Do you think that the final lockup in the last two laps was Carlos Sainz's own fault? Do you think that it was just because he was trying so hard and that he didn't end up doing it? Do you think that it was just hard-fought racing? Do you think basically Carlos Sainz could have truly won this race?
The answer to your question is no. I don't think Carlos Sainz could have won this race. And the reason why is because Max Verstappen is that good. And because I don't think, and excuse my Spanish, that Carlos Sainz has enough cojones yet. I think
You
that
think he hasn't made it yet?
I think that if Charles Leclerc was in that car in the exact same position as Carlos Sainz, we would be saying that Charles Leclerc was in P1 by the end of Sunday.
Well,
I
that's
think
also
Charles
because Charles Leclerc has been in that car for what, 3 more seasons than Sainz? So
yes, 100%. He's been with the team at 3 more seasons. But I think that it's just a question of experience plus having the balls to make the move that will win you the Canadian Grand Prix. And it's getting very difficult in Sainz's season because, he's at, he's at the point where psychologically he doesn't have his first race win, but he is in a race winning car. And if the things, if the right things happen, the luck will be on their side. He can win a race. What I'm being very fearful of this season is that, yes, these new cars are made in a way where following is much easier and much better than the previous generation of cars. But what I'm fearful of is that is the only thing that they'll be doing. And there won't be many overtakes, especially for the lead, like we saw this weekend. I'm fearful that it's just going to be a Max Verstappen clean sweep this season, and we're not going to see any real big fights for the lead. We're going to see a lot of fights in the midfield.
I'm going to counterpoint everything that you just said. Now, you said that Carlos Sainz does not have the cojones yet to make that pass. I think that he does, and that he tried. And that's why he ended up locking up. Is because he wanted to make that daring move that normally Max Verstappen would do. Like, for example, last year, if Lewis Hamilton was in first place, Max Verstappen would easily dive bomb, and it would just work. But it just didn't work out this time. But I think that his attempt to move forward on the last 2 laps, and sure, it ended up blocking up, but I think it shows that he has the motivation to make that pass. And if you think that it's going to be just a Max Verstappen domination because no one's going to be able to pass him, I think that we shouldn't be blaming the cars for it. We should be blaming Red Bull for being too good and for developing a car that is really suited to the new specifications. I don't think we should be blaming Max Verstappen for being too good. I think it's a combination of the both of them, but I think it's up to the rest of the teams to build a car that truly responds to the new regulations like Red Bull did.
I completely agree with you. This is why we call it the Constructors' Championship. Every team builds their own car and each have their derivative of what the rules and regulations are. However, because there are the baseline rule and regulations, I'm fearful that one interpretation of them is just going to be a landslide. And it just, from a race fan's perspective, it doesn't make it fun. We want to have more racing, we want to have a mix of teams in the hunt, and we don't have that. We have one team at the front. It's not looking like Ferrari is going to come close to Red Bull this year. And if they do, they really have to have luck on their side. So that's my point, is that the regulations themselves don't allow for an effective way to overtake the leader. They allow for an effective way to follow the leader.
Well, yeah, but they also make they make it easier to overtake regardless of where you are. Because if you had we've had situations where overtaking the lead was relatively easy, but the whole point is that there's supposed to be more overtakes no matter where you are. And if you're saying that there's only going to be overtakes in the middle, then to F1 that means that the new regulations are working. That's the devil's advocate part of it.
Right. The debate will continue on a future episode of the JJF1 podcast.
Well, in that case, let's talk about the fact that Lewis Hamilton quietly led Mercedes to a podium. How?
In what he claimed was the worst car he's ever driven. Let's remember.
Oh, that's brutal.
Oh, you didn't hear the radios.
He drove some pretty bad McLarens.
But you didn't hear the radios, eh?
No. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the radios. I was at the race.
Right. Right. So on team radio, during I believe it was free practice 3, if you watch like the best of team radio on F1's YouTube channel, he said in FP3 or FP2, I forget, he said, "This is one of the worst cars I've drove ever."
Meanwhile, for all that happened, he still managed to drive that car to P3.
And I think that he just loves Montreal. I really think that, they fully for sure changed the setup. There's no way they didn't change anything when Parc Fermé rules came into play.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I think he just really knows how to master the Montreal track. It's a very high speed and particular track that he has won, I think, 6 times at.
7
times that.
Including his first win.
Exactly. So I'm not surprised that he winded up on the podium.
I mean, Lewis Hamilton, I think during the week before the Canadian Grand Prix, he became an honorary citizen of Brazil, which is another place that he says he absolutely loves racing at. But I don't think we should be giving him honorary citizenship of Canada, but I think that we should definitely be giving him some sort of trophy for being tied for the all-time most Canadian Grand Prix victories. It's him and Schumacher with 7 each. And that's enough Lewis Hamilton praise for today, because over the last, I don't know, 10 years or something like that, he's had enough praise given to him.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you were talking earlier about Ferrari. Let's talk about the fact that Charles Leclerc took all of his engine penalties, started P19, and he drove up to P5. I think that every single time that Charles Leclerc was going around the hairpin, he was making an overtake. And it was beautiful to see, especially where I was sitting.
I'm sure for you had a great view of that.
Yeah.
Charles Leclerc was actually very upset in the post-drive interviews about his performance. They asked him.
He was stuck behind. Who was he stuck behind for a very long time?
He was stuck behind Ocon for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I don't think he had enough power in the car to get past him. But he was saying how because of that, he was very upset at his performance today, even though he gained 14 places. If you would have told him this in 2020, I think he'd be really happy. But that day was not a good day for Charles Leclerc. Again, I think that had he not been stuck behind Ocon for such a long time, we maybe could have seen him P3.
I was going to say he easily could have gotten on the podium.
Right. And that was a great performance for damage limitations in terms of the championship for him.
Yeah, and their goal, from what I remember in Leclerc's interview, was at least P5.
Right. Which he wasn't even happy.
I know, but can you at least recognize the fact that you still got 10 points?
Yeah.
Like, come on, that is a good race.
I mean, if you told Kevin Magnussen he'd get 10 points, he'd be ecstatic, but
Kevin Magnussen did get 10 points in the first race.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, that Ferrari, please I just saw a meme where it was Ferrari. It was a Ferrari's iPhone, and you had 4 different setting options, and it was like good strategy, good pit stops, no driver mishaps, and bad luck. And you try to turn on all 4, and if you turn on all 4, then one of them is going to deactivate. And I think that's exactly how Ferrari's season is going. If you think that everything is going to go well, it's not going to go well. Something else is going to happen.
Yeah, that's the luck this season.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I was very proud to be Canadian when Lance scored points. That was, I don't care what you say. That was a good drive, period. Lance knows how to drive this circuit. He's been driving this circuit forever. Though that was a great drive. That's it. End of story.
Yes, I was very impressed with Lance. It's funny because when Jordan and I were at the pit lane walk, we were talking to other Formula One fans, and the natural question to ask fellow Formula One fans is, who's your favorite driver? Who's your favorite team? So Jonah obviously says Lance Stroll is his favorite driver and Aston Martin's his favorite team. And people will come to me and they say, who's your favorite driver? And I say that it's Lance, but that it's so hard to cheer for Lance because he hasn't been so good recently. This weekend, I can cheer for Lance.
Great.
And I was very happy doing so.
I thought the Stroll was going to get on pole, but something didn't end up working out. But I don't care because he got 1 point. And I will take that 1 point forever because just especially being in his grandstand, another reason why I want to thank Aston Martin and that entire thing is because on race day, we get Lance Stroll hats. I don't have it on me right now, but it's basically a British Racing Green Aston Martin hat. And then instead of the Aston Martin logo on the front, there's a red Lance Stroll logo. And then on the back, it says 2022 Canadian Grand Prix. And then there's the Aston Martin logo on one side and the 18 on the other side. And everyone, actually not everyone, but most people in the grandstand were like, oh, okay, this is cool. I'm not really going to wear it because I don't care that much about Lance. Meanwhile, I was already decked out in full Aston Martin gear, and I said, perfect, I'm switching my Aston Martin hat. I'm putting on my Lance hat, and I'm going to be a very happy person today. So, very great reason to be happy, especially when Lance Stroll got in the points.
Yes, I don't think the Nicholas Latifi grandstand was as happy.
Yeah. Good thing that I have that as my next bullet point. If you want to talk about, if you have anything else to talk about the race before that.
No, let's dive into Formula One news and rumors.
Great. So, Jordan, I'm just going to ask this question straightforward. 5 words. Is this it for Latifi?
Summer break is my answer. I think that at the summer break, we may be seeing some driver swaps.
Yeah, we heard some rumors.
Yes.
Actually, you heard some rumors more than anything.
Now that you've stuck around until the end of the podcast, we're going to reward you with listening to my insider information. I don't want to call it insider information.
From anonymous sources, which we will not name.
Jonah and I had the privilege. We have the privilege of living in Montreal, and during the race week, the Formula One staff and crew are all around the city, and they're such nice people working in Formula One. And you get to talk to them, and you hear things that not everybody hears about.
Yeah, and which is exactly why we want to protect them and not mention any names. So
we are not going to mention any sources. However, it is very probable we see Oscar Piastri. It is close to 90% certain that Oscar Piastri will be in a Williams seat by the Belgian Grand Prix or by next year's Bahrain Grand Prix.
It's deserved. That's it. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
that's it.
I think that it is very known around the paddock that is what is going to happen. I think it's very known at Williams that is what is going to happen. And maybe morale on, I don't think Alex Albon's the one getting replaced, on Nicholas Latifi's side of the garage is lower. Um, but yes, that is the news that we have on the Nicholas Latifi front. He is about 90% confirmed from being booted from his seat in favor of Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri will probably work out a similar deal to that of Alex Albon's deal with Red Bull, where there are some stricter clauses in terms of the sponsorship that Alpine has and
Yeah.
the ties to the Alpine Academy. Alex Albon still has many ties to the Red Bull Academy and still has many ties to the Red Bull team. And
Red
he
Bull's
still
on
has,
his helmet.
yeah, he still has contractual obligations towards them. So it'll be a similar situation there. And also maybe a similar situation to Guan Yu Zhou, a similar lending situation from the Alpine Academy to Alfa Romeo, but this time would be from the Alpine Academy to Williams.
Great. And I heard another rumor, and that is that next year there will be no Belgian Grand Prix and that there will be no French Grand Prix.
I am happy about this rumor.
So let me explain, okay? So over the course of the Canadian Grand Prix, the team principals voted down a potential 24 race calendar, which means that the European leg currently has 8 races that could be filled. Okay. No, sorry. Yeah, 8 races total, and currently 6 are under contract. So one of them. No, sorry. Let me rephrase that. There are 6 that are confirmed, and there are 4 tracks that are fighting for the last 2 spots. So Austria is not under contract yet. Monaco is not under contract yet. Spa is not under contract yet, and Paul Ricard is not under contract yet. So, because Austria is the home of Red Bull, it is 99% confirmed that it is going to be on the calendar. And then Monaco is also mostly confirmed because it's Monaco. I think that's self-explanatory, which means that with the rest of the calendar being under contract for 22-23 races and no willingness from the team principals to add another race or 2 other races, that means that Spa and Paul Ricard are going to be the ones that are left out. How do you feel?
I feel great. I really don't like any of those 2 tracks. Bye-bye.
Oof. Okay. I mean, we had a half decent French Grand Prix last year.
Yeah, but I think it was because of the circumstance that Lewis and Max were in and the fight that they were having. And also it was the first French Grand Prix where strategy really came into play.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see this year, but last year was the Grand Prix of the terrible Grand Prix turned into the good Grand Prix. Think of the Spanish Grand Prix last year, who ended up being a Mercedes strategy masterclass.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay. I mean, part of me is kind of annoyed that Belgium isn't on it just for the history, and also because 2021 was not a race, so I feel like they deserve a good race before they end up going out, and hopefully it's this year. Paul Ricard, I don't care that much about it, so I'm kind of indifferent on that.
Paul Ricard should never been on the calendar in the first place.
Oof. Okay. What? There's Manicourt and there's Dijon that were on the calendar at some point each.
In my opinion, the French Grand Prix is actually the Monaco Grand Prix.
Tell that to the Monegasque, like all 30,000 of them, and they're gonna be pissed.
Well, okay.
And then the last rumor that no, not even rumor, it's confirmed at this point. It was confirmed like 2 days ago. Pierre Gasly staying at AlphaTauri for next year, which means that, contrary to your prediction, Jordan, he is not going to McLaren. And it proves that he has that seat for however long he wants.
I really think that this is the last time he will be renewing for next year.
You think so?
Absolutely. We have to remember what the point of AlphaTauri is. It's not to win races.
They're not a junior team. They're a sister team. There's a difference.
I think that their goal is to make it back to a junior team.
Yeah, but that would mean that
They
you would
have,
that
I
you
mean,
would
aside from the Liam Lawson scandal, they have still many people coming.
That was Yuri Vips, not
Yuri
Liam Lawson.
Vips scandal. They have many drivers through the pipeline that need to be in Formula One sooner rather than later, or else they'll have wasted so much money developing drivers in F2, F3, and even earlier.
Yeah, but the thing is that you're intentionally ruining their opportunity to be competitive by transitioning it into a junior team rather than a sister team.
I think that's exactly what they need to do.
Why? Wouldn't you just want a competitive team with good young drivers?
No, you can still have a competitive team, but you need younger drivers. You cannot have a competitive team with veterans and call it a sister team / junior team.
All right. Well,
that's my opinion.
Yeah, to be debated on a future
episode
F1 podcast. Do you have anything else to say about whatever rumors or about the Canadian Grand Prix or about, oh, I forgot something. We're going to Silverstone next week.
We are. We have to do our predictions. It is the Goodwood Festival of Speed this weekend. Everybody is so happy. What are your predictions for next week? For the past 2 times I've been saying Valtteri Bottas on the podium. I don't think it's going to happen this time.
A British driver is going to be on the top step of the podium.
Whoa, that is a very hot take.
What are our options here?
Lando,
Lewis. Hold on. Lewis, George, Lando. Who else is British? Is that it?
I think so. Are we missing somebody?
No, hold on. Haas doesn't have any British drivers. Williams does not. AlphaTauri does not. Alfa Romeo does not.
Right. No.
Aston Martin does not. Alpine does not. McLaren has Lando. Mercedes has Lewis and George.
No, there is not.
And Red Bull does not. Okay, so Lando, George, or Lewis are going to be on the top step of the podium.
Hot take that a Mercedes is going to find the top step of the podium again.
Well, a Mercedes-powered car, one way or another.
My hot take is that Max Verstappen is going to DNF.
No redemption from last year?
No, he's going to DNF.
Gonna DNF. Ooh, that's pretty spicy. That's pretty spicy. The question is he going to DNF with his wheel falling out at the same place as last year?
I don't think so, but I think he will DNF because of a reliability issue.
Yeah, I mean, Perez had some PU problems this time around. I love that picture, by the way, of Perez looking like he was wandering through a jungle, but it was actually just the trees in Sokuji.
Yeah, a lot of people were asking about that on social media. A lot of people commenting like, why is he taking a scooter or a motorcycle back?
The issue is that the circuit is so tight. It's on a man-made island, for those who don't know. The island is made out of the soil that was dug up from the Montreal Metro. So you like, there's not a lot of space. There's the F1 track, there's the infield. That's basically it. And there's like one lane of enough room for people to walk. That's it.
Yeah, it's not big at all.
No, it's not. So when they say, "Oh, you need to walk through the trees," it's literally because there's no other option other than getting on the track.
Right.
Do you have anything else to say? Because in that case, we're just gonna wrap up.
Well, what I have to say is that I am hitting the road as of tomorrow, and I will be on vacation for the next month and a bit. I am traveling across the west coast of the United States, and I will be less available for podcast recording. So Jonah may bring some guests.
There's going to be, it's guest time.
However, by the time summer break is over, we should be back to full-time podcasting.
Yeah, well,
Jonah and I.
I mean, to be fair, it's only fair that you start trekking the world because I trekked the world for 5 months. So I think it's only fair that you get a well-deserved break. I mean, now for those who don't know, you're in law school, so it's difficult.
I appreciate that. But what I can promise the JJF1 and F1 fans is that I will be in Vegas. So I will be scouting the track for the future for next year's race.
You gotta build some content when we're in Vegas.
When
you're in Vegas, sorry. Well, in that case, if you want to see what's going on for the next races, for the end of the season and beyond, feel free to like our Facebook page and follow us on Instagram at the JJF1 podcast, and we will see you for the next episode. See ya.
Yeah.